All right, Deep Dive Wednesday is where we talk whatever we want to talk about. We both come with our assignments. We come to present them to the class. So, Leger, what do you want to discuss here on today's show?
There's been a lot of great storylines in the NFL. The Minnesota Vikings, obviously, with B-Flow, Brian Flores, and his defenses and how they've caused quarterbacks and offensive coordinators headaches. There's also the New Orleans Saints the first 2 weeks of the season, a little bit back to reality, week 3 versus the Philadelphia Eagles. But my question, or what I want to ask in the deep dive, I want to do is, why is nobody talking about the Seattle Seahawks? Like, this team has been, I don't even want to say a dark horse for me, because I've been trying to tell people this is a legit team in regards to making a run in the playoffs. When you look at it, yes, anytime you get a new head coach, people say it's going to take an acclimation period. But when you look at this team, offensively, they were already set. Right. And then you add Ben Grubbs to that offense. We saw what he did in Washington last year with Michael Penix and the slew of receivers that they have. Well, if you look at Seattle, it's kind of built the same way with the 3-headed monster at receiver that they have. But they also add a physical run game. Now, Kenneth Walker has been out. But, I mean, my guy, Zach Charbonnet, good Lord, the way he was running the pill on Sunday versus the Miami Dolphins, they'll be like, Kenneth, take your time getting back now. It'll be great when both of them are back. But right now, make sure you're healed up, because Zach Charbonnet is carrying the load. And then I've been saying this for the last 2 years, and maybe, Mac, you can back me up on this. I don't believe there's been a quarterback in the league that has made more perfect throws than Geno Smith. Like, the gonads on him on some of these throws is utterly ridiculous. I remember last week versus Miami. Pressure comes, he evades the pressure, steps up into the pocket. Kendall Fuller has his back turned to DK Metcalf on the sideline. He literally puts the ball over top of Kendall Fuller's head.
Gives him a haircut.
You know how disrespectful that is? Like, nobody makes more big-time throws than Geno Smith. Now, big game this week, Detroit Lions, right? Now, let's not forget, Seattle went up to Detroit last year and actually won. So they're very familiar going up there and winning. And I think the biggest issue for Seattle last year was on the defensive side. Like, they gave up a ton of yards, a ton of points. But you bring in a defensive-minded coach, and yes, Pete Carroll was a defensive-minded coach. But I think you just influx, you bring in some new energy with Mike McDonald and the way he's able to have essentially positionless football, right? Like, guys play multiple positions on that defense. You never know who's playing the slot. You never know who's playing in. Like, Draymond Jones essentially was an inside guy last year. He's playing all outside this year, right? He's moving Leonard Williams around. He kind of got banged up, him and Byron Murphy. Hopefully they're all right going further on in the season. But I also love that Tyreek Woolen seems like he's found himself again, because he struggled last year on defense for the Seattle Seahawks. And Devin Witherspoon is going to be Devin Witherspoon. He's going to be a perennial All-Pro every single year. And I think Julian Love was one of the most underrated signings last year for this team. The way he's been able to use him, move him to slot, move him to middle safety, have him in the box. Like, this team is legit. Now, this is a big test for them this week, but people need to start talking about the Seattle Seahawks.
You're preaching to the choir for me. I picked them to win the division. So I thought before the season this team was for real. Now I think the couple big things here. One, who they've played. Broncos, Patriots, Dolphins without Tua. That's obviously not like super inspiring from a scheduling perspective. Plus, they're kind of stuck in that 4 p.m. window usually. And people are out asleep on their couch by that
far
point.
From us, they fly Alaska Airlines. Like,
Probably.
It's so far.
Alaska.
No one's watched it, but I do think this week, should they go into Detroit, beat the Lions? Yeah, we're going to start talking about, they are real deal contenders in the NFC. And I do think they are. And it's because of this defensive turnaround. They're currently 4th in points per game against defensively, 9th in points per game offensively. They are really playing good football. And especially this defense side of the ball and the secondary. I love what they're doing, like you said, moving guys around so much more than before. Last year was Witherspoon slot, Julian Love deep. It's like this year, those guys are versatile. And you're seeing that versatility from them. Like, Julian Love was a college corner. He played outside corner at Notre Dame. He has a skill set that isn't just stuck as a deep sort of half sort of player, deep middle sort of player. He can do a lot of different things. And they're finally tapping into that with the Seattle defense. And then they've added a bunch to this defensive line. And they had added a bunch in recent years in terms of young guys who are now flourishing, and guys like Boyd Moffitt. So yes, there truly is. I think people are going to, after this weekend, and maybe they don't beat the Lions, but I think they hang tough with them to the point where we're talking about the Seahawks team is like, not only just, a good story at 3-0, they're probably the favorites at this point to win the West.
That's incredible. I mean, it's just incredible. The things that Geno has been through in his career to be in the situation where we can kind of like take him for granted in terms of like what he does every week. To your point about making perfect passes. I was listening to Rodgers yesterday on some guy's show, popular guy's show, and he was talking about Josh Allen's performance and what he saw from him and how he was able to deliver perfect footballs and the difference between a ball that's a bit behind or on the hands or out in front on, let's say, a drag route. And the difference is tackle at the point of the catch or touchdown. And when you're talking about Geno Smith making perfect passes, he not only does that, he's got great receivers on the outside and true balance now. When you think about this guy coming from the University of Washington, I love their offense with Rome and Penix. It was fun. It was like it was a confident offense. It was almost like watching those Commanders the other night where it's like, let's give our guys opportunities to make chunk plays. That's what they believe. And I love the Mike McDonald stuff. His defense has been fun to watch. And I think it's true balance. You know, often it's I look at Chicago. They don't have a true offensive mind in the building, in my opinion. Seattle, they have balance, both sides, checks and balances, and they have stars on both sides of the roster. So they are a great team.
You are the Shane Waldron fan?
I mean, you should have heard the guys talking about him that left Seattle last year.
Yeah.
Like if you go listen to the quotes of these players, they're like, good luck. Good luck. Anytime a guy says good luck and doesn't say he sucks, I mean, it almost says he sucks more. In my opinion. Tell me how you feel. Tell me how you really feel.
To put some numbers to those Geno Smith, he was first in terms of next-gen stats, completion percentage over expectation back in 2022, sixth last year. So right up at the top of the league. I think very underrated as quarterback. And what they're doing this year is they're creating so much more space in the passing game. I think last year they tried to beat guys with scheme, just like either one-man routes or one, half-field sort of reads. They're giving Geno the entire picture.
Full gambit, yeah.
He really can go anywhere with it, and they're doing a lot of that, and they're still succeeding even with a bad offensive line. I think that may come back to bite them.
Interior is tough.
Against better D-lines. We'll see how they fare against this Detroit Lions defensive line this week, but that's my big worry is I love what they're doing offensively, but it's going to be tough for them to put together drives with that O-line right now, especially that interior. So
didn't we just see a stat, some advanced analytics I sent you yesterday that stated that the Minnesota Vikings were essentially like
one of the worst, but
one of the worst teams.
They don't get into obvious pass.
We got to make sense of that.
So